He won the lottery 14 times, not by luck, not by cheating, but by doing something so mathematically precise and so completely legal that governments around the world had to rewrite their laws just to stop him. 11:20 p.m., February 15, 1992. In a warehouse in Virginia, 35 people are staring at a television screen in complete silence. On the table in front of them, 6.4 million lottery tickets, every single one of them legally purchased. Every single one of them part of the same plan. In 60 seconds, 6 numbers are about to decide whether that plan was genius or the most expensive mistake in lottery history. The man behind it isn't in that room. He's on the other side of the world in Australia waiting for a phone call. His name is Stefan Mandel. And this isn't his first time doing this. It's his 14th. 14 lottery wins, not luck, not cheating. Something so mathematically precise, so completely legal, that after this night, governments in 44 states would have to rewrite their laws just to make sure nobody could ever do it again. This is the story of the man who turned the world's most unpredictable game into a calculated science. And the night he walked away with $27 million while every lottery official in America stood completely helpless. But to understand how he pulled off what happened in that warehouse, you have to go back almost 30 years to a country where a man like Stefan Mandel had every reason in the world to fail. To understand how he did it, you first need to understand where he came from, because nothing about Stefan Mandel's early life suggested he was destined for anything except survival. Romania in the 1960s was not a place of opportunity. The country was locked behind the Iron Curtain under Soviet control, and daily life for ordinary Romanians was defined by one thing: scarcity. Food was scarce, jobs were scarce, hope was scarce. The communist government controlled everything and rewarded almost nobody. Mandel was an educated man, a trained economist with a sharp analytical mind and a genuine understanding of mathematics, and despite all of that, he earned a monthly salary of 360 lei, the equivalent of $100, barely enough to survive, not nearly enough to build a life. He faced the same choice millions of people living under oppressive economic systems face. Accept the limitations. Risk everything through illegal means, or find a third option that nobody else had thought of yet. Mandel chose the third option. He started where every economist starts, with numbers, specifically with the mathematics of probability and combinatorics, the branch of mathematics that deals with how many different ways a set of things can be arranged or combined. He studied theoretical probability papers for years. He drew inspiration from the work of Leonardo Fibonacci, whose mathematical sequences had fascinated scholars since the 13th century. He became obsessed with a single question: was the lottery truly random, or was it a system? And if it was a system, could a system be beaten by a better system? After years of research, the answer crystallized into something he would later describe as his guiding principle. Mathematics properly applied can guarantee a fortune. The insight Mandel had arrived at was both simple and revolutionary. A lottery is not actually a game of chance. If you can purchase every possible combination of numbers, if you hold every possible ticket, then one of those tickets must win. The lottery stops being gambling. It becomes a guaranteed return on investment. The only question is whether the jackpot is large enough to make buying every combination profitable after costs. He called his method combinatorial condensation. The core principle was this: identify a lottery where the jackpot has grown large enough that buying every single possible ticket combination would cost less than the prize being offered. Once that threshold is reached, the lottery stops being a game of chance and becomes a mathematical certainty. The first test came in Romania itself. Mandel formed a small syndicate of 4 friends who shared his vision and were willing to pool their money. Together they purchased tickets covering every possible combination for a specific Romanian lottery draw. The syndicate won. The jackpot was modest. After covering costs and paying his investors, Mandel was left with approximately $4,000, not life-changing money, but proof of concept, absolute undeniable proof that his system worked exactly as he had calculated it would. That proof of concept changed everything. With his winnings, Mandel did something that most people in communist Romania could only dream of. He bribed government officials to secure the documents he needed, and then he left Romania entirely. He escaped westward, seeking the larger lotteries and the larger jackpots that his system required to truly deliver on its promise. In the 1970s and 1980s, he set his sights on the United Kingdom and then Australia. Both countries had well-developed lottery systems with jackpots large enough to fit his criteria. He built new syndicates in each location. He gathered investors who believed in his mathematical approach and were willing to contribute capital to fund mass ticket purchases. Throughout the 1980s, Mandel's syndicate won 12 Australian lotteries and collected 400,000 smaller prizes, including a significant $1.1 million win in 1986. But there was a problem. The logistics of his operation were becoming increasingly complex. In the early years, filling out hundreds of thousands of tickets by hand had been the limiting factor. A single mistake in a combination could mean a missed ticket, and a missed ticket was a missed win. As his operations scaled, the margin for human error became unacceptable. Then in the 1980s, something happened that transformed Mandel's system from impressive to unstoppable. Computers. Mandel set up a room full of computers and laser printers running on his algorithm. The machines pre-populated tickets with every single possible combination automatically and accurately. What had once taken months of painstaking human effort could now be executed with mechanical precision. The logistical barrier that had previously limited his ambitions had been removed entirely. Australian lottery authorities noticed. They changed the law specifically to stop him. A single person or syndicate could no longer purchase every possible combination. The loophole that had made Mandel's Australian operations possible was closed, so he looked elsewhere. He began a systematic analysis of lottery systems across North America. He evaluated lotteries in Massachusetts, Arizona, Montreal, Miami, Phoenix, and Norfolk. He was looking for specific criteria: a lottery with a relatively small number of possible combinations, a jackpot that had grown large enough to exceed the cost of purchasing all combinations, and crucially a lottery that still allowed bulk ticket purchases and home printing. He found his target in Virginia. The Virginia State Lottery was relatively new. It allowed unlimited ticket purchases. It allowed tickets to be printed at home rather than processed at a cashier one at a time. And, most importantly, its numbers only ranged from 1 to 44. This meant that with 6 picks there were only 7,509,052 possible combinations. Compared to the 25 million plus combinations in many other state lotteries, this was remarkably manageable. Mandel began building the most ambitious operation of his career. He established a company called Pacific Financial Resources and created a trust called the International Lotto Fund. He then convinced 2,560 people to participate as investors through a legal financial structure. In a warehouse in Melbourne, he set up 30 computers and 12 laser printers and hired 16 full-time employees to print tickets pre-populated with every possible combination. The process took 3 months. When it was complete, the printed tickets weighed 1 ton. He shipped them to a contact in the United States at a cost of $60,000. Then he waited. A lottery jackpot typically starts small and grows each time a draw passes without a winner. Mandel needed Virginia's jackpot to reach a level that would guarantee profit after taxes, overhead, and investor payments. So he watched, and he waited. For months, his team monitored the Virginia jackpot as it climbed slowly toward his target threshold. On February 12, 1992, the Virginia jackpot hit $15.5 million. The order went out: execute. What followed over the next 72 hours was one of the most extraordinary logistical operations ever mounted in the history of gambling. A man named Alex, who had been recruited by Mandel, as the operation's point person on the ground in Virginia checked into a Holiday Inn in Norfolk. He converted his hotel room into a command center, then moved to a nearby business park where he established a proper headquarters. He coordinated a team of 35 couriers, most of whom were certified accountants, selected for their precision and reliability. Each courier was given bundles of 10,000 tickets wrapped in cellophane and accompanied by stacks of $10,000 cashier checks. For 2 straight days, the couriers descended on 125 gas stations, supermarkets, and convenience stores across Virginia, Farm Fresh, Miller Mart, tiny giant locations throughout the region. Store clerks were asked to process thousands of pre-printed lottery tickets at each location. Many were confused, some were skeptical, but nothing about what was being asked was illegal. One gas station owner later admitted he thought they were completely nuts. But if someone wants to buy 700,000 lottery tickets, he was not going to turn them away. The operation was moving forward. Then, with hours remaining, one of the retail chains became overwhelmed and quit. 140,000 tickets representing 700,000 combinations were left unprocessed when the deadline arrived. Of the 7 million possible combinations, Mandel's team had covered 6.4 million, 91%. The remaining 9% meant that for the first time in his career, Stefan Mandel could not mathematically guarantee victory. After 20 years of turning lottery games into certainties, he was going to have to rely partially on luck. At 11:20 p.m. on February 15, 1992, the Virginia State Lottery drew its winning numbers on live television: 8, 11, 13, 15, 19, 20. In a nearby warehouse, Alex and his team stared at the screen in silence. Then someone shouted they had won. The winning ticket had been purchased at a Farm Fresh supermarket in Chesapeake, Virginia, and processed in the final hours of the operation. The jackpot was $27,351,000. In addition, the syndicate had also won 6 second prizes, 132 third prizes, and 135,000 minor prizes worth a collective $900,000. Stefan Mandel sent a short message from his home in Australia to his 2,524 investors. One of our target lotteries dug jackpot to our required level. We entered and won. What happened next was not what Mandel had planned for. Virginia lottery officials were stunned. The operation was immediately subjected to investigation involving 14 international agencies: the CIA, the FBI, the IRS, the Australian Securities Commission, the National Crime Authority. Authorities scrutinized every aspect of the operation, looking for anything illegal. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Every ticket had been legally purchased. Every dollar had been legally transferred. Every investor had legally participated. The entire operation from the Melbourne warehouse to the Virginia gas stations had been conducted without breaking a single law. Eventually, the Virginia State Lottery released the winnings, but the aftermath was complicated. The $27 million prize was to be paid out in 20 annual installments of $1.3 million per year. After paying back investors and covering the $5.5 million in ticket costs plus additional expenses, the returns were significantly smaller than the headline number suggested. Each of the 2,560 investors received approximately $1,400. Some were disappointed, some were furious. One investor later said Mandel was not just irrelevant, he was toxic. Mandel paid himself a one-time consultancy fee of $1.7 million and reportedly sold the rights to the 20-year annuity payments to a U.S. insurance company for a lump sum of $14 million. The governments moved quickly after that. All 44 states that operated lotteries immediately enacted new legislation. Individuals and syndicates were no longer allowed to purchase lottery tickets in bulk. Home printing of tickets was banned. The specific combination of factors that had made Mandel's Virginia operation possible was systematically dismantled in every state simultaneously. Stefan Mandel had won the lottery 14 times across 3 countries over 20 years. and in doing so he had permanently changed lottery law around the world. He became the first and last person ever to successfully guarantee a lottery jackpot by purchasing every possible combination. A few years later, in 1995, Mandel declared bankruptcy. His ventures outside the lottery proved significantly less successful than his ventures inside it. He spent time in Israel, where he faced legal proceedings related to investment schemes. He eventually settled in Vanuatu, a small island nation off the coast of Australia known for its volcanoes and waterfalls. He lives there quietly, retired from lotteries, trimming his beard carefully, calculating even in that small act the odds of cutting himself and getting an infection. Because to Stefan Mandel, everything in life is mathematics, and the chances are always in his favor if you know how to calculate them properly. This is what separates the Stefan Mandels of the world from everyone else who has ever bought a lottery ticket hoping to get lucky. He never hoped, he never wished, he never prayed, he calculated, he planned, he built systems, and he executed those systems with a precision that governments around the world had no framework to stop until it was too late. The lottery exists to give ordinary people the dream of extraordinary wealth through the randomness of chance. Stefan Mandel looked at that dream and replaced the randomness with mathematics. He did not beat the lottery. He made the lottery irrelevant, and that is perhaps the most extraordinary financial story of the 20th century that almost nobody has ever heard. If this story changed the way you think about mathematics, money, and the systems that govern both of them, subscribe to Dark Ledger right now and turn on notifications, because every week we uncover the real stories behind the world's most extraordinary financial minds, the people who saw what others missed, who calculated what others left to chance, and who changed history because they refused to accept that the rules of the game were fixed. The next story is already waiting, and it is every bit as unbelievable as this one.